Hello, world and universe. Welcome to the Trevor Donald Experience. Manifest your truth. And if you're new to the channel, please hit that like and subscribe button. And for all my continued followers, I want to say thank you. And this is an opinion-based video channel where I try to open your eyes and your ears about some of the things that are taking place throughout our cities, states, country, and sometimes our world. And try to get you to utilize the five senses that God has given us to kind of have a semi-PhD in common sense to navigate through this crazy, wonderful world. And I just recently heard this morning that the St. Louis University president, Dr. Fred Pistolo, is retiring as of next year in 2025. So they made the announcement now. And also that Fontbonne University, which is a Catholic university here in St. Louis, is also closing in 2025. I used to be on the board of Fontbonne some 20 years ago. So you got some stuff going on right here locally out of St. Louis. St. Louis University president's return. And Fred Pistolo, just to give you a background, he was the president who led St. Louis U through the COVID-19 pandemic and multiple rounds of protests for racial justice back a couple of years ago. And Pistolo is 71. He will step down as the 33rd president of the university in June 2025. And as I just stated, Fontbonne University, Catholic University near WashU, is closing for good after being open for over 100 years. It started out as an all-women's Catholic college, and then it became co-ed, and now they are closing and shuttering their doors due to enrollment and fundraising. So we have this thing that's going on in our universities, seeing fewer and fewer kids that are going to college and putting all their marbles in sports and entertainment, and people are not focused on education like we used to. But I also looked up and saw that in St. Louis U and WashU are right down the street from each other. And they have always had this, one's Catholic, the other one's not, and both considered private institutions, and they've always competed for similar types of students. But here in the last couple of years, they both have had a lot of loss and grief due to some students that have either committed suicide or had died due to unfortunate circumstances. And so I want to tell you a little bit about it. So here we go. Numerous student deaths rattle WashU and St. Louis U campuses. Loss and grief have become commonplace on the campuses of two of St. Louis' largest universities following numerous recent deaths, raising questions about the school's mental health service programs. Mental health is one of the pillars we need to work on. Since classes began in the fall at St. Louis University and Washington University, 6 students and a resident physician have died, 4 within a 2-week span in the last couple of years, last year and a half. Of the 7 deaths, 4 were suicides, while the cause of death in the other 3 cases have not been announced. Both schools do not release cause of death information without consent from the students' families. An email to St. Louis U community from administrators mourned the suicide of undergraduate student Sean North. North died on April 25th, according to an email a year or 2 ago, shortly after emergency services transported him off campus. According to his obituary, North came to SLU from Leawood, Kansas, on a swimming scholarship and was an avid sailor and Eagle Scout. Right now, our focus is on wrapping his loved ones with support, reads SLU's email. Know that we share this information so we can help each other heal. We cannot destigmatize death by suicide, ideation, or mental health needs more broadly if we cannot name them. Days before North's death, a SLU graduate student died from undisclosed causes. The school's president, Fred Pistolo, announced in an April 6th email. And Postello and Vice President of Medical Affairs Christine Jacobs informed the SLU community of the passing of a resident physician who died that Sunday after these two other individuals had passed on the Sunday evening, and no further details were provided. These deaths followed two student suicides on SLU's campus less than 2 weeks apart last fall. One student who has not been named took their life in a public area of campus on September the 11th. 9 days later, a 22-year-old student, also unnamed, died by suicide in a residence hall. At Washington University, Chancellor Andrew Martin and Vice Chancellor Anna Gonzalez wrote of the passing of a senior engineering major, Anamika Basu, who died on April 3rd of last year. Out of respect for the privacy of Anamika's family during this difficult time, we are not sharing any additional details about her passing, Gonzalez wrote. Basu's death followed the suicide of WashU sophomore Orly Sheffy, who took her life on February the 11th. Nearly 1,000 people gathered for a vigil in honor of Sheffy, who studied political science and previously worked as senior news editor at the university's student newspaper, Student Life. The newspaper temporarily ceased publication following Sheffy's death before resuming online publication a month and a half later under a new editor-in-chief. Orly was a friend to so many and cared so deeply about creating a better world, both in general and on this newspaper, wrote outgoing editor Matthew Friedman in a public letter back last year, March 31st. Friedman described Sheffy as a staunch advocate for mental health. Since the pandemic began, Student Life has reported extensively about the school's mental health services, noting that campus resources are really overwhelmed and that in certain instances some students are fed up. Following two SLU suicides in the fall, over 9,000 people petitioned the school to implement improvements in its counseling center. 6 new student support groups formed at St. Louis U this past semester. In a statement to the Riverfront Times, SLU spokesman Clayton Berry said additional staff have been added to the university's counseling center to increase the availability of walk-in support and extended evening hours. The campus schedule has been supplemented by well-being days featuring mental health programming and canceled classes. Further, a task force has been formed to implement actions recommended by members of the university's community. The university also opened drop-in spaces on campuses that are staffed by SLU employees to serve as a place for students to study and be in community, Berry adds. Suicide has long been the second leading cause of death among college students, second only to accidents. A global pandemic only exacerbated an epidemic of youth mental illness that was already on the rise. Berry says SLU recognizes that young people everywhere are experiencing mental health crisis and that the pandemic, with its isolation and separation from loved ones, has contributed to a distressing climate of uncertainty, fear, and sorrow. SLU is doing everything it can to support its students and to ensure that they have the resources that they need. And I wanted to do a video on this because, as I tell you all the time, for my followers, we have 7 or 8 pillars that are fragile and are breaking at the framework in our society and are not being fully addressed. And mental health issues, I think, is right at the forefront, along with the opioid crisis, homelessness, inept inner city public schools, gun violence, joblessness, hopelessness, and the inhumane insensitivity we have for each other in today's time. And this is a very, very, I think this is probably the hardest time at least in my years of living, to be a young person, a teenager, a person trying to go to college, to be in their teens and their early 20s. There are so many things that are being shot at them, are being targeted to them from an external stimuli standpoint, that some of this can be confusing and hard to extrapolate and navigate. Technology is moving at a fast forward pace. You can get information at a push of a second. It's coming extremely fast, making, I think, it hard for young people to digest and sift through what's real from what's not real, whether it's artificial intelligence, a fake story, a real story. Family dynamics have changed. Divorce rate has gone through the roof. Gun violence, shoplifting, looting. We're in a very chaotic and disruptive state in America today. And this particular story is about, like I said, a year and a half old, where there were numerous student deaths that have rattled WashU and St. Louis U. And if anybody knows the demographics of St. Louis, we're talking St. Louis U is on Grand, WashU is on Skinker. And we're talking a straight drive down Forest Park Parkway or Highway 40 can get you to either campus within 7 to 10 minutes. And these are what I would consider, they have great medical institutions. WashU and St. Louis U have been in the top 20 in several categories. WashU is associated with Barnes, BJC, Barnes Jewish Hospital and Center, where you also have Barnes Children's Hospital, which is a top program, medical program. St. Louis U is SSM, and you have Cardinal Glennon Children's Hospital right there on Grand, which is a notable and highly respected pediatric specialty and care center. And in today's time, with the exorbitant amount of student loans, and school is costing so much today, it's confusing now to wonder, are you paying for a degree or are you earning one? The average undergrad student, if they're taking out loans for WashU just for college, will owe well over $200,000 or $225,000 in student loans. St. Louis U is probably $180,000 to $200,000 between room and board, tuition, and all of that. I mean, if you're 21 years old, how will you ever recover and pay that money back? You already are starting in heavy debt, which leads to stress, which leads to anxiety. It's hard enough to major in to get a degree from SLU or WashU, and definitely if you're majoring in something I consider a heavy subject matter like engineering or chemical engineering, electrical engineering, physics, political science, accounting, biology. You want to be a pre-med, pre-law student, and also participate in social activities, fraternities, sororities, and theater, music. There's a lot for 18 to 22-year-old that has to deal with, and then also peer pressure and having friends. And if you're coming here to St. Louis and you lived on, and your parents live on the East Coast or the West Coast or down south, that isolation can also be a strain. And so this stuff started taking place about a year and a half ago. You remember we had the pandemic, and I think that the isolation exacerbated any mental health strains, anxiety strains, insecurity strains that people were having. I think the pandemic helped push that narrative to the forefront. And so you've had, a few people, you had over, 4 or 5 people committing suicide, and there's also been a history in the last several years where, also based on the demographics of where SLU and WashU are, they're still in the city of St. Louis. Unfortunately, which is not in this particular article, you've had several students that have been robbed, armed robberies, not by fellow students, but by people from the surrounding city that have come and robbed WashU students and St. Louis U students. And then you've even had a couple of students that have been murdered. There was one case a few years ago where a female student that attended SLU, she was in the Central West End, and somebody stole her phone, robbed her for her phone, and then they shot and killed her. And so there's been some storylines where students have gone outside of the campuses to enjoy themselves in the surrounding city of St. Louis and have been accosted and robbed, and also there have been a few homicides. But this was a very interesting story when between the two campuses, they had like 9 deaths within a 1-year period. And mental illness and anxiety is a real issue. We must recognize it within ourselves, and hopefully we can recognize it when we see other people that are suffering from it, and please extend an olive branch to try and help them. So yeah, this WashU and St. Louis U had several deaths that have rattled their campuses over the last 2 years, and I wanted to bring this to our attention and talk about it. Young people this is a very difficult time to be a young person, I believe, and we have all kinds of things that are going on today that were not issues for me back when I was growing up. Even the bullying today, whether it's internet bullying or in-person bullying, is very different. We didn't have issues with LGBTQ stuff. I'm not saying that I'm for or against it either way, but that is a very tawdry issue in today's time that I didn't have to go through. We didn't have the advocacy and the internet and computers and information coming to us as quickly back in my day. I think we were more back in the 70s and 80s, a more community-oriented type of environment, whether black or white. Now people they're losing their one-on-one talking and utilizing their 5 senses with another person, the humanity aspect of it, and now everybody just has their face into their phone or their computer. They're getting all their information from this information technology. That could be good to a certain degree, but it can be bad in many other ways if it's not utilized in the right aspect. And so I think this article clearly states that and then the amount for tuition, what it costs to go to college today is way different than 25, 30, even 40 years ago. Sometimes it makes you wonder, are you earning a degree or are you buying one? Are these institutions of learning, or are they really a hybrid of a financial institution and a financial company that's really worried more about their endowment than their student enrollment? Some of these endowments are exorbitant. They have more money than third world countries and some second-rate countries. So sometimes we wonder, is the mission statement of some of these universities getting blurred on, is it about the kids and developing them into mature professional adults, or is it about just get as many kids in, get them to sign those pieces of papers for those loans so we can continue to make this a financial institution more so than a learning institution? And I think that pressure has a heavy burden on these students with the amount of debt they come out with, trying to find a career, a job. Many times college is a place where you end up finding your loved ones, your wife or your husband. All that can be very, very stressful. And when you go from 21 forward, you're making decisions that could affect you forever. Marriage is one of the top 3 things that will affect your life ever. Having children, what job you want, getting a divorce. Marriage is not only a love thing, it's a business contract. And so that is something, picking the right person, the right mate. Over 50% of our homes, black or white, are run by single parents, and that is a real problem. And those numbers even greater in the urban and black community. And so you have too many kids raising kids, and these fatherless homes is showing itself and displaying itself in a very disruptive and non-productive way. These kids nowadays are disrespectful to their teachers, to their principals, administrators. There's a lot of disruption, and the whole caveat about going to school to learn seems like it's gotten caught in these blurred lines of confusion and chaos. You're seeing way too many kids that are fighting in school, after school, and even some of these kids that ended up getting murdered and killed during their lunch break or after school going home. And we have to figure out, where is America headed? We are having complete civil unrest, and there is a real public safety issue that is taking place. So yeah, tell me what you think about this St. Louis U, Wash U. These are our two big universities here in St. Louis, and over the last year and a half to 2 years, they had a short period where they had over 7 deaths, 4 were suicides, and while the cause of death in the other 3 cases were not announced, you had a physician who died unexpectedly, and you had several college students, all within a year and a half to 2 years, and that's not including the assaults that have taken place when these kids have gone out into the city. So public safety is an issue on these campuses. Kids at DePaul are getting robbed in Chicago on the northwest side. That is becoming a real issue. They're telling people to walk in groups, even in the St. Louis market. It's unfortunate, but public safety is a real issue, and we need more videos talking about our public safety. People want to go home, want to leave their homes, go to work, come back and be safe. Go to the grocery store, go to the mall. They want to raise their kids. People want to go to college. You want to be able to send your kid away and know that they're going to be safe, that they're there to learn and not worrying about their safety and if they're going to be harmed. And mental illness is a real thing that we need to pay very close attention to. There are people that are making rash decisions, and there is a blurred line between life and death today. Tell me what you think. This has been the Trevor Donald Experience. Manifest your truth in a positive, righteous, and God-fearing way. See you next time.